Today's going to be around 36 centigrade in Portugal. And check my mic. Yeah, so folks, good day. Today's going to be about 36 in Portugal where I am, which is like close to like Marin County in Northern California. So yeah, if you drive inland to Sonoma, it's pretty hot, but usually by the ocean, it's not so hot. I can see the fog by the ocean from where I am on a hill. It's already really hot. I've been walking for a couple hours. It's 10 o'clock. I'm heading back. Did a little shutterbugging, taking photos of fruit before they're all picked, and some pickers, stuff like that. And thinking about some stuff, interesting things, you know, motivations. Hola, bom dia. Caminhando. Very good, thank you. So that was a neighbor, so I stopped talking to myself. Anyway, yeah, thinking about some fun stuff. And, you know, I keep talking to my smart friends who know a lot about certain things because they've read certain books and they watch MSNBC or they get their information somewhere. And so all of us just tend to think that if we know something about something, we know everything about everything, which is foolish. Thunderfoot did a piece on climate change that was very illustrative, but it won't matter to anybody who's a fan.
I understand what you're dealing with, do you?
I tried so hard.
We have a kind of handwriting on the wall.
I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't good enough.
Indulge yourself. No consequences.
So this represents all of the power production of mankind. Absolutely everything. Every car, every internal combustion engine, every generator, every power station, all of it.
This is the way we are. We're all biased. None of us have a free pass to that. We believe what we want to believe, and that's that. We're not really motivated to learn anything. So yeah, just like for war, there are incentives for doing it. And one of the big thing is when rulers have unchecked interests, ambitions, desires. You can think of Henry VIII, for example, his exploits. There are examples throughout history, and they can be motivated by different things. So if there aren't any checks and balances in the system, in the structure of your socioeconomic system and politics and so on and so forth, you're going to have people doing what they want to do. So they get power and they do what they want to do. So some people today want to see that type of executive power and think it's the only way to go forward. But of course, underlying this are all kinds of belief systems, incentives, both good and bad, ideologies, and so on. And they boil down to selfish human interest, greed, a desire for power, glory, status. And there are just so many examples throughout history of this kind of thing. Leaders can use moral outrage to motivate people to do things against their interest, like go to war or waste all your time trolling the internet or watching YouTube instead of trying to do something for yourself that might actually be positive and help improve this situation. Goering in World War II was a fat, greedy slob who just wanted to collect art and beautiful uniforms. But he understood human nature, understood his pilots, so he invented all kinds of awards and medals and things to give his performing pilots And it didn't matter if you were a shy, serious, intellectual pilot or a wild, rambunctious, hard-drinking, whoring pilot. If you were good, all that mattered to you was the competition. So they'd go and fight, and one ace would bring down a whole bunch of people in the Battle of Britain, and he would get oak leaves and awards, and the other people would say, oh, I've got to do better than that. And then Goering would take his ace off the line and bring him back for stag hunting, keep him off the line for a while so another person could overtake this guy. It was all part of motivating these people to go out and take risks with their lives to kill more of the enemy. And there's lots of studies about this, but the more risks they took, of course, like they keep firing at an enemy when they should probably break off, and they have an accident and crash, or the wingman comes in and shoots them down or something like that. Anyway, as people got motivated to achieve glory and status and newspaper headlines, more and more of these pilots would die. And it was a very effective strategy. And I forget who said it, but somebody said, people build cities, princes destroy them, that kind of thing. Another quote that's fun, sorry, I can't remember who said it. Sorry. But, you know, what do you need for war? Money, money, and more money. So it was always balancing, you know, these things, finance and materials and human lives, to get glory for unchecked elites who had, you know, malincentives. 7 deadly sins. Weren't the best people in the world. They wanted glory and headlines and power and status and money. And we know about this not from reading history, but we can watch TV shows like House of Cards or Billions or Game of Thrones. Put it in any context. And you can say, well, William T., what are you talking about? It's human nature. And in some ways we should maybe surrender to it and just go ahead and watch whatever unfolds, like, who cares? The game is to get status, power, recognition. And there are different things motivating us that are untangible. So these are intangible motivations, like ideology. You really don't care about the facts, the data, the science, probabilities, statistics, hard evidence, lines of evidence, different forms of evidence. What you care about is, does it fit your ideology? And also you get very polarized in that. So that's another motivation that politicians and people can use to control you, and control over you is only going to get better in the future with new tools that we have. Data collection, data analysis, data science, artificial intelligence, large language models. Forget the general artificial intelligence, that may or may not come sooner or later, but the tools for manufacturing consent, for media as the message, for memeing and trolling and pushing people to do things against their own interest is only getting better. You can see this in the United States with the polarization politics. Actually, the whole system is just one thing. It's kind of like a monoculture. You know, there's really not any difference. Both sides use culture war issues to drive their base and get votes, and then the corporations support the people who are winners, and then they co-opt them and use them. Everything's a commodity, including the President of the United States. If Curtis Yarvin can find an executive that's going to be a benevolent king at the head of all that, make all the right decisions, good luck with that. We don't make people like that anymore. Wise kings were always the exception to the rule. So yeah, we just don't have them. And they're not going to just pop up or hatch out of an egg somewhere, or maybe fall to earth, like a man who fell to earth, you know. So yeah, there's so many examples of this. Also in revolutions, you know, you have righteous anger. The the insurgents or the revolutionaries or the conservative junta or whatever, they're killing priests and nuns and murdering children and torturing people. Or you just decide being under the thumb of an invader is not worth it. So you're North Vietnamese people, you're going to die. You're going to fight no matter what. Or you're Afghan, in Afghanistan, Taliban or whatever, and you're just saying, I'm not going to give up. I hate being under the thumb of these people in El Salvador, Nicaragua, wherever, Guatemala. But you have higher forces, higher powers, more powerful nations that are stirring all this up because it's lucrative to do so, and because your career can advance, and because you can gain status and fame and money and power and recognition and glory if you do this. And so people want to be Navy SEALs and Army Rangers and Green Berets and so on, because, you know, they can have the glory. There's a lot of these motivations, a lot of them are stirred up. So even though you might be righteously angry, and therefore a revolutionary and willing to die for nothing, not because you're going to get a farm or you're going to become an oligarch or you're going to become the king, but just because you're sick of the boot on the back of your neck. And so you fight. Who stirred that up? What was the first cause of that? Well, there is no first cause unless you're totally religious about it and have that kind of teleological perspective. A creationist, you know, God came along, created this conflict, you know, or the devil got into Putler's heart and just ignited a fire. There are all these other motivations that are there, a tangled web of them, pushing things forward, making these things erupt. And then, of course, you need a lot of money, like we said, and materials. And we lose equipment in Ukraine now that's, you know, $30 million a pop. Soon it'll be airplanes that are, you know, $100 million with all their kit, and they go down, you know. But we have modern monetary theory now, so it's a lot easier for our players to raise money. They can just, quote unquote, as the metaphor says, print it. They just make it up, and then they spend it. And that money goes to corporations that can then use it to buy other assets and gain even more power. It's just the way it goes. And if you can't see how all these things interrelate, you have a problem. You know, you're unable to see your own biases, prejudices, what's motivating you, and so on. You can't evaluate your sources of information. You can't wade into the deep water with other sources of information that go against your preconceptions and your settled aversions and so on and so forth, or don't support your it's confirmation bias all the way down. So yeah, Hitler used ideology to, you know, let the people know there couldn't be a compromise. If we don't find our Lebensraum, you know, our living space, and we don't colonize these eastern areas and purify them, in other words, kill everybody there and replace them with our blood, we don't have a chance to survive and in a glorious fashion that we were meant to, that God and Providence and so on meant us to live. So there's no compromise. You know, Hitler would rather see Germany burnt to a cinder than surrender because of that ideology. It's almost like a religious fervor. And we have really stupid ideas about how America got started, but one of the things that Americans always loved was liberty from the day one. And the British Crown would have to spend tons and tons of money fighting the French and the Native Americans and everything. And they'd ask for some taxes. And, no, man, you're not going to control us. We want freedom and so on and so forth. So there's no amount of negotiation that was reasonable or not that the Crown could make to tax the colonies, anything. So, you know, taxation without representation, then you have another war, and then finally get America, and it just gets more and more like that forever until you know that Uncle Sam has to own the whole world and turn it into Disneyland, otherwise everything's evil. No compromise, man. And even in the States where it's polarized, everybody hates everybody, they can all agree that the world should be Americanized, and that those other people, brown people or people who speak another language or something, they're just not worth as much as an American. So if we use more energy, God meant us to use more energy. God's will be done. So you have all these people saying that, if you're a climate change person, all you want is for good old Americans to become poor so that Africans can become rich or Chinese people can become rich. You can't win this game. I read another article saying we can't win the climate change battle, so why should we fight it? You just got to give up. It is what it is. Nature is what it is. You can't fight nature. You can't beat nature. Nature always bats last, as McPherson says. And at the end of the day, circumstances will dictate whether or not we can eat. And if we can't, billions of us will die, and we'll see what happens to the survivors. The climate's changed before, and human beings migrated to different areas to scratch out a living. Maybe some technologies will make it easier, but how are you going to harvest the energy? And if we had fusion, we would just, continue our ways. We're not going to change our way of life, which is consumerism and getting rich. And so I ask you, what is wealth? What makes you feel wealthy? Is it your friends and family, or is it oligarchs? Is it fame, glory, status, possessions? How many cars do you need? Do you have to have a collection of sports cars? Is that absolutely necessary, or it's a game changer if you can't have sex with 1 million women? We pay attention to all these idiots, like Sam Harris said the other day, assholes, who are deliberate assholes because there's a market for assholes now. People actually support assholes because there's something poetic about saying fuck you to the world. I'm going to do what I want, and you can't stop me. And people want that power. Selfish, small-minded, and even your really smart friends who think they know something because they can sail or ride a motorcycle or make a baby or make $1 million or whatever. And they know better than everybody in the world. Everyone else is stupid and provincial and idiots, and the type. There's so many of these kind of baby boomer mansplainers around the world who know everything. And they don't know it all. And even when they hit a blind spot, they're not willing to look at it. They just don't care. Their great-grandfather won medals in war, so that means they're special. Even though they never fought in a war, they've never done anything glorious. Maybe they went on an adventure, they sailed somewhere, they flew an airplane. And they consider that some kind of big adventure. We can have glory and status by just doing good things, actually. But we don't care about that. We want more. We're greedy. 7 deadly sins. We forget about the virtues. And so it's never enough. And you're stubbornly not going to learn about the other side or the other point of view or another line of scientific evidence or historical or legal lines of legal evidence. You look at Assange and what happened to him has happened to lots of people throughout history, and the powers that be are just saying, you can't expose our crimes or our flaws. That's not going to be tolerated. So, like I said yesterday in the video, nobody cares about what Chris Hedges has to say. It sounds righteous, it sounds messianic, and it just pisses people off. Unless you're like me and you kind of see the point and you're like, well, yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but I guess you make your bed. People make mistakes. Maybe everyone's a bit arrogant. Assange was arrogant, and his arrogance got him in trouble. But he would have been hounded and killed one way or another whether or not he went back to Sweden to face the music, to trumped up charges. And there's been so much evidence that's come out over the years since he went into the embassy, and it's very well documented, but nobody wants to know that. If you're a pom-pom boy and you love to cheer on the status quo and their war games, I hope you're a shareholder and are making lots of money. Shareholder in the MIC, the military industrial complex. You're a pom-pom boy, and anybody who says Uncle Sam's not the best guy in the world, you're going to say, you know, string him up. And that's no different from a religious zealot. You know, people do say stupid things like science is a religion, or climate change is a religion, or everything's a religion, because atheists and others, or people who don't identify as a theist, will say your religion's kind of idiotic. Hey, it's just part of how human beings deal with the mystery. And I ask you, is not the world a black box now? Everything's a mystery. We don't know how our socioeconomic system works. We don't know how our phone works. We don't understand physics. We don't understand quantum computing. We don't know what the vast majority don't know what a large language model is, or how it works, or what it does, or if it's a thing or not. We just follow the media, and if it's a big deal, we get excited, and if it's not, we don't. But most of us would rather be playing a computer game on a massive computer. You know, we don't want all these graphics cards to go to these large language models and Bitcoin, because we want to play video games, because that's fun and entertaining, and they're getting better all the time, and that's what we care about. And then we get all excited when somebody wants to give away a PlayStation, and we storm the park with tens of thousands of people to get our free box. And it's a black box. We don't know how the animation was done. We don't understand the graphics cards in our computers, unless we're a bit nerdy. But we can play those games, and that's an addictive thing too. We have a kind of full glory, a kind of LARPing glory of, you know, leveling up in the game. And we, you know, everything's gamified, so you go to Duolingo and you think you're going to learn a foreign language. You'll get addicted to it. You'll want to, you know, maybe climb the ranks, but you're not going to learn anything. Learning a foreign language is, there are processes and work that must be done to learn. And if you don't do that work, unless you're a genius of some kind or a savant, and you just pick up languages easily, self-taught, like we've heard the stories, so-and-so taught himself 16 languages, can speak fluently, whatever. It's not going to help you, but it stimulates your brain chemistry. It's a, what is it called, hypernormal stimuli or supernormal stimuli. And so the stimulation keeps you going. And, you know, badly incentivized, unchecked elites know exactly how to manipulate you and convince you to go and destroy things. And you really don't know the cause, because there's never one cause. Unless you want to just talk about, in a very narrow sense, hitting a cue ball and it hits an 8-ball, and you're gonna forget about all the psychophysical brain stuff going on, and why you went to the bar and all those other things, why you play pool. It's just that the physics of what the ball does when you hit it a certain way. And you can say, well, these are the causes, you know, the basic physics. But life and war isn't that simple. So yeah, look at the different incentives: glory, status, money, you know, power, fitting in, righteous, feeling righteous, ideology, and go back and read your history, because you think you're a big fan of history. And, go back to Achilles. My name will be remembered. At the end of the day, you're a fat king with pustules on your legs, open wounds that are just oozing. You created the Church of England, big deal. It's still alive today. So you could get a divorce and, you're dead. You're a big, fat, obese, fucked up guy who's dead. And you're trying to remember when you were jousting and you were a big shot. So we all wind up in the grave. And of course, a lot of people are entertaining the fantasy of, transhumanism and cryogenics and different ways to hack the body to live 1,000,000 years and singularity and whatnot. Well, go ahead. If that floats your boat, have fun with it. But every once in a while, you might take some time to analyze why you think what you think. All right, Buoy MT, out. It's hot now, man. Let me tell you, it's